everyone. So I'm just going to quickly go over all of my points and whatnot from the readings, and then at the end I'm just going to wrap everything up with my thoughts and kind of make a little conclusion. On Maxwell page 104 it says, "Who you attract is not determined by what you want, it's determined by who you are." Despite Lars being a bit socially awkward through the use of Bianca, he was able to let more of his loving personality show and attract those around him. He was able to show his true self in a natural way. I believe that Bianca was able to be a leader as well as a pathway for Lars to show how compassionate and loving he truly was. Because of Bianca, people wanted to be around him. On Maxwell page 106 it says, "Not only do people attract others with similar attitudes, but their attitudes tend to become alike." The way that Karen showed compassion for Lars made her a very strong leader in the community. She always kept a positive attitude about the situation, which drew in others that were also willing to help. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Gus felt like the situation was a major hassle and spent most of his time criticizing Lars' antics and the advice of his wife, the doctor, and the people around him. This caused the guys he worked with and the friends of his to feel the same way and make unnecessary comments about Lars, but it was evident in the film that attitude is absolutely contagious. On Maxwell page 119, it says, "It's one thing to communicate to people because you believe you have something of value to say. It's another to communicate with people because you believe they have value." The relationship between Gus and Lars was obviously one that was failing. We saw that they were close as children but drifted apart with age. Gus failed as an older brother and as a leader because he failed to communicate with Lars. Gus was more concerned with how people would judge him and Lars rather than focusing on Lars getting better. He failed to see the true value of his delusion and that despite the hardships at the end, Lars was finally opening up and happy. Besides Gus, everyone in town valued Lars and were willing to fight for him and make the process with Bianca easier. On Maxwell page 130, it talks about there are no Lone Ranger leaders. A true leader never comes without followers. A great example of this are the people from the church. When Gus and Karen first sat down with them to discuss the situation with Lars, at first they were against helping. But all it took was one lady in the group to stand up as the leader to help Gus and Karen with Lars' situation. Another great example is when Lars takes Bianca to a work party. At first, the host hesitated, but her and her husband show great leadership by talking and dancing with Bianca. Eventually, everyone at the party became strong followers and leaders in Lars' delusion. On Shapeman page 53 it says, "When applied to leadership, flexibility is defined as being open and adaptive to changing situations." Knowing that Lars would need help with Bianca, Karen was the most flexible. Despite her being pregnant and preparing for a child, she did whatever she could to accommodate Lars and Bianca. Karen was very open to the situation, and she knew that Lars was in real need of support. Many others in town became flexible as well, by going out of their way to spend time with Bianca, take her to the hair salon, take her to work, and many other things. This showed that the people around Lars was willing to help and be a support system for him. On Shapeman page 64 to 65 it says, "Optimistic people are not oblivious to real issues. They know how to see the possibilities without ignoring the realities." Karen is very optimistic about the illness that Lars is going through. She thinks things out rationally and takes Lars and Bianca to see a doctor. Throughout the entire film, Karen was a driving force of positive energy for herself and Gus. She understood that Lars may never recover, but she continued to stay open-minded when her husband wouldn't. The only time Karen begins to falter is towards the end of the movie when her and Gus finally accept that Lars would probably never get better. Finally, on Shapeman page 65, it talks about a business concept called mood linkage. It explains instances in which the mood or outlook of an individual or small group affects the entire organization. Gus and Karen have two separate views on Lars, one positive and the other negative. The mood linkage happens between these two because of the lack of optimism from Gus. In my last slide, I mentioned how Karen finally lost a bit of her optimism. I absolutely blame this on Gus. Through the entire movie, we see him battling with himself internally. He never fully committed to helping Lars, and he always had a poor attitude about the situation. Gus's constant negativity only brought Karen down to his own place of negative thoughts. So overall, I really love this movie. I had to watch it for another class before, so I was really excited to be able to analyze it in a different way. It's one of my favorite movies because Ryan Gosling is super awkward. But overall, I think a lot of changes could have been made, especially from Gus. I think he was a massive issue as to why Lars is the way that he is. Lars is super socially inept, and I think it didn't help that his brother isn't there to help him and doesn't even seem to want to make an effort to try to be there for him. But I loved Karen throughout the entire movie because she tried so incredibly hard, knowing that her husband was really just being a jerk and only really cared about himself. But I really was hoping to see, every time I watch it, I hope to see more progress with Lars. I really hope to see more social abilities happen with him. I understand that he does get better through Bianca, but at the same time, I kind of wish more happened. I don't know, I think it's really cool that, not cool, but kind of crazy that people go through this every day. This is something that real people deal with, and this movie is just such a great example of showing leadership and just showing even this kind of illness. I think it's especially in communication that I've been learning. I just can't believe sometimes that these are real things that happen. You know, people have relationships with dolls, and it's just crazy. But overall, it was great. I just really would like to see more things happen with some of the characters. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time.
If there's no one beside you when your soul embarks, then I'll follow you into the dark.